Hi, I'm Layla, and I'm a third-year industrial engineering major. I just spent the past month on a geologic field seminar in Iceland studying glaciers and volcanoes. I've always wanted to go abroad, so I jumped at the opportunity to complete my environmental geology minor and check a dream destination off my list. So goodbye Boston and hello Reykjavik. This trip is different from most other dialogues, because for all but 5 nights, this was my home. Although I've camped a lot beforehand, it was hard adjusting to eating, cooking, and sleeping outside because it was colder and for much longer than I've camped before. But eventually, our little tent village became home. Each morning we ate breakfast in the food tent and packed a lunch for the day. Eventually, I perfected the art of sandwich making and was able to make this beauty. Our day-to-day activities had a huge variation. I loved hike days especially. Basically, we were dropped off at the bottom of a trail and were allowed to hike up at our own pace. Those who wanted to were given the option to extend the hike. Usually I took advantage of that because I got to see views like this. The crowning accomplishments were completing a 20-mile hike to an eruptive fissure from 2010 and hiking above cloud level on the quote monster hike. The geologic aspect of this trip was made up of bus stops at faults, hotspots, waterfalls, glaciers, and geysers. Here, we would get a quick lecture, log some field notes in our books, and get to explore the area and observe the geologic landmark. We also regularly visited museums and geothermal plants, and to my surprise, hot springs. Geothermal pools are really popular, and we went to a number of them. Some were very touristy, like the Blue Lagoon, and others were much more rustic. These hot springs were definitely a highlight of the trip. After a day of adventuring around, one of the 6 cook teams we were split into made dinner for the entire group. Cooking got slightly competitive, so we ate incredibly well for camping. Some of my personal favorite meals were stir-fry and French toast. I was on cook team 1, along with Sarah, Emily, and Adam. Honestly, before this trip, I'd never really cooked much. So, in this past month, I not only learned how to cook for myself, but also 26 other people. Even though this is a geologic dialogue, I feel as though we were thoroughly exposed to Icelandic culture when we visited cafes and explored towns we stopped in. It was pretty easy to get familiar with cities like Reykjavik in just a few days. For me, food plays a big part in cultural experiences, so I took advantage of opportunities to eat Icelandic specialties. A group of us decided to split the gourmet Icelandic feast, which included smoked puffin, Icelandic trout, whale, blue ling, lobster tails, and a skyr moose cake. It was a great way to try a variety of dishes in one meal. Later, we also got around to sharing a lobster pizza, reindeer burger, and fermented shark. For future reference, I recommend all but the shark. Hot dogs and paprika french fries are also popular, so a fair amount of those were eaten as well. A couple of things surprised me on this trip. The first was the nearly 20 hours of sunlight. It was really confusing at first, but now real darkness seems weird. The second is how close the whole dialogue became by the end of the trip. The rarity of Wi-Fi made it hard to talk to people outside of the dialogue, and because we were camping, traveling, and eating together every day, we were always hanging out. It's strange to think that only a month ago, most of us didn't know each other. The past month has been such a great experience, and I'm so glad for the opportunity to be able to go to Iceland. I've fallen in love with this country, not only for the geologic aspects, but also for the raw natural beauty. Often, I felt like I was transported to Middle-earth from Lord of the Rings. I learned so much on this trip, not only about geology, but also about random other things, like how to cook for 30 people, a handful of new card games, and how to use crampons. Even though I've been here for a month, I can't wait to come back already.